what's out there.
Hello and welcome to Home Media Minefield presents Let's See What's Out There Plus, a weekly video stream and podcast currently focused on Star Wars Andor, which is available to watch on Disney Plus. I say we're weekly. We did actually miss an episode last week because of me traveling. First world problems, eh? So today we're going to have a double spoiler-filled episode where we are going to be looking at episodes 10 and 11. So that's One Way Out and Daughter of Ferrix. So we are going to spoil those two episodes, essentially episode 11 being the penultimate episode of this Andor series, which one more episode to come. So if you're new here, welcome. If this is your sort of thing and you enjoy what we're doing and find it somewhat entertaining or interesting, then please do consider giving the video a like, subscribing to the channel, and if you hit the bell icon, you'll get notified as and when content drops. We do all sorts of things on this channel relating to film, television, streaming, and all that kind of media. So my name's Keith Isles. I am an independent filmmaker and a lifelong enthusiast of movies and TV shows. And joining me today, I have writer, artist, and Star Wars enthusiast, Graham Williams. Welcome, Graham.
Thank you for having me back again, Keith.
No worries. Wearing the appropriate t-shirt, which actually I have that one, so maybe I should sort of trade in doing the waistcoat all the time and actually wear a branded t-shirt, you know. It's
your gig, mate. You go for it. Although you could easily just wear a white shirt and you've got the Han Solo look back down.
Yeah, that wasn't actually the intention, but now you mention it, well, you know, why not? I've got to unbutton the waistcoat and yeah, be more rugged and obviously more handsome.
More rugged.
There you go. Obviously, we usually have Pete Mealy join us. Unfortunately, he's not available today to do that over in New York. So it was great to have him on for the last couple of episodes, you know, and be in person for one of them. So, but we are going to crack on nonetheless, right? So we do have a kind of loose format for this show for anyone who's visiting us for the first time or finding this for the first time. So we just have a little bit of banter here at the beginning. We cover the episodes, as I said, in spoilerific detail. We talk about some of the behind the scenes. We have a little bit of fun just talking about Easter eggs and references and connections to other Star Wars or film and TV material. Then we have thoughts and predictions and where we think this might be going before we get into our real views and nitpicks on it, which is the bulk of the show. And then you've got the opportunity to get in touch if you so desire. But if you don't, that's okay as well. And you can obviously put comments in the section down below, any comments that you might have, and I try and follow up on all of those. So there you go. How you feeling, Graham? Are you all good? Having a good week and time so far?
Yeah. It's been busy with the NaNoWriMo month, the November novel writing, so balancing that with all the other aspects of normal life. But Andor has been not just a great distraction, but an entertainment as well. So really pleased that we've got excellent and a decent TV series to help us through as well. So this November's a busy one, as they usually are, but feeling good and really looking forward to talking through Andor with you then, Keith.
Yeah. Well, we'll see where it goes. There's a lot to talk about. There's always a lot to unpack in these things, and lots of feelings and emotions and memories along the way, which we tend to dig into as well. But that's all part of the fun, isn't it? And
absolutely, yes.
And hopefully our audience, if we have any, will find it as fun and interesting as we do. But if not, that's fine too.
We'll do our best, won't we?
Indeed. So our synopses part, our fire when ready, or we've been saying you may fire in 5 years. It's probably now fair to say you may fire in 4 years, perhaps. Yeah.
Get into that now. Yes, we've heard from showrunner Tony Gilroy that we have these 12 episodes as 1 year, and the next will be the remaining 4. So we're at that countdown now, Keith. Yeah, agreed.
Exciting stuff. Well, in that case, Graham, you may fire in 4 years.
Episode 10, One Way Out. Keith, Cassian Andor has to work on Kino Loy, who is still conflicted. The escape must be tomorrow when a new prisoner replaces the dead Ulaf. When Keith tells his fellow prisoners in 5D the rumours on the second floor slaughter are true, the increasingly emotional Kino snaps. The prospect of being a prisoner for life now drives Kino. The escape from Nakina 5 is all set up. Kino, with guidance from Keith, directs the daring, tense, exciting escape we had hoped for. The entire prison go from no way out to one way out. As ever with this Andor series, there's a twist. We know that Nakina 5 prison is surrounded by water, and we knew that the escape wouldn't be easy, with losses to be suffered along the way. But I, for one, was not prepared for the gut punch of Kino delivering the line, "I can't swim." The other prisoners, including Keith, Cassian Andor, and Melshi, swim for freedom, we hope. And that's not the end of the episode by any means. We get more progress and more twists. Mon Mothma finally has the stakes raised directly against her and her family. The meeting between Tay, a banker friend, and the uber-wealthy thug Davos Skulden, a fellow Chandrilan, turns from exchanging pleasantries to double talk to a proposition that where Mon's daughter leader is the price of doing business, not money. A true alternative financial arrangement. And at the ISB, the trap is set for Anto Krieger. The mustachioed Loni Young persuades Major Partagas to act as normal, else risk Anto being tipped off. But we haven't seen the last of Loni. He makes his way through the true underbelly of Coruscant, where people and creatures of all kinds skulk in the shadows and talk in whispers. We ascend hundreds of levels in an elevator to meet with Luthen. We discover that there is a mole planted in ISB after all. It's not Daedra Miro, but Loni, a 6-year cloak and daggers veteran, a rebel whose career at the ISB has profited from information exchanges. Loni wants out, and Daedra Miro and the information Anto Krieger is the trade-off. Luthen's ruthlessness is taken to literally a new level. Luthen's stirring speech has acknowledged heroism and sacrifice at its core. Luthen himself has sacrificed everything and tells Loni that he is damned and that he is condemned to use the tools of his enemy to defeat them. Luthen's speech is prescient of what we know will happen through the event of Rogue One and the events of Star Wars: A New Hope and beyond. Luthen's rebellion needs all the heroes he can get. Episode 11, Daughter of Ferrix. An episode where an off-screen death means so much to so many. Marva Andor has died. B is lost and grieves deeply. He is more human than non-human droid here. The daughter of Ferrix and Brasso try to help, and Ferrixian customs are explained. Vel visits Mon Mothma on Coruscant, only to find leader practicing religious customs of Chandrila that had been eschewed by Mon and Vel. Mon confesses she is considering Davos' proposition. Cyril gets an unexpected call from the former Sergeant Mosk with the info of Marva Andor's death and how there's a chance that Cassian will visit Ferrix. Cyril takes the opportunity and credits from his mother's safe. Luthen calls in to warn Saw Gerrera of the ISB's trap on Anto Krieger. A lack of trust still dominates these men's relationships and actions. Luthen lies and cajoles and ultimately wins the argument to sacrifice Anto Krieger for the greater good. Saw talks of war. Vel pushes Clea's buttons but can't get to meet with Luthen, but she does persuade Clea to pass the information of Marva Andor's death to Luthen. The decision is made to travel to Ferrix. Luthen won't accept Clea's arguments and the risk to his life in going to Ferrix to fetch Cassian Andor. En route, we, the fans, are treated to one of the coolest, bona fide Star Wars scenes when Luthen's ship is intercepted by an Imperial cruiser. More this time than Luthen's calm under pressure, it's the reveal that his ship is in fact a Batmobile in space. An exciting and daring escape ensues. Where does he get all these wonderful toys? And throughout the episode, we follow Cassian and Melchi's escape from Narkina 5, from them making the finger-numbing climb up sheer cliffs, giving Free Solo a different meaning, to being caught, trapped, and then released by a couple of, thankfully, Empire-hating aliens, to hopping back to the Star Wars Miami beach of Miamos. Cassian's secret chest of guns and credits are, thankfully, where he left them before being imprisoned. Cassian agrees with Melchi's plan to split up and tell people what is happening on Narkina 5. We end the episode with Cassian receiving the news of Marva's death by a call through to Ferrix and a shoreline sunset reminiscent of Cassian Andor's death in Rogue One. And so, as expected, all eyes should turn to Ferrix for this season's finale.
Very, very, very good. God, they're dense episodes, aren't they? with this, but I particularly love the fact that you got both a Batman and a Free Solo reference in there. I do like it when we can get other No, I do like it when we can get other films in there as well, and that was awesome. So very good indeed. Thank you for that. I found that
fun to put together and return to the episodes. Yeah, a lot going on. There's even reference. I stripped it out of my summary there earlier. There's even reference to spinning plates by Clea in one of the episodes, and I feel that actually this creative team for Andor are. I don't know how the hell they're doing it. It's just all these plates just keep on spinning and spinning and spinning. There's 2 episodes that my summary in some ways just don't do them justice to how much really is going on there.
Yeah, well, that leads us, I think, very nicely into time to thank the maker. All righty, so these episodes, once again, we've got a flip here. So episode 10 was the conclusion of the arc that was written by Beau Willimon and directed by Toby Haynes, both of which we've talked about. And then we had that episode 7, which was kind of an odd one there that was a standalone episode. And that goes back to showrunner and writer Tony Gilroy for episode 11. And the director of episode 7 has come back, Benjamin Caron, to direct this episode. So we've already talked, as I said, in depth really about these guys in previous episodes of this show. But I think it's it's really fair to say that they are doing a fantastic job, both with the the writing duties, the way the show is being helmed by Tony Gilroy, and indeed the direction. Both Toby and Benjamin, I think, have brought something unique in their way to the show, and have been basically knocking it out of the park. So yes, and I'm still to find out. I guess it was a production reason, perhaps, that the episodes that Benjamin have done have been split It might be to do with locations, because of course we do end up going back to some of the locations that were there in episode 7. So it might have been a scheduling thing and something as simple as that in production. But who knows? Because sadly, we're not involved in the production. But one guy who is, and is doing a great job, and I know we've mentioned, the look of this show, and we've talked about cinematography and production design and all of those sort of things. But one of the things we keep bringing up as well is the costumes in this show, and how they both bring something new and fit into the Star Wars universe. And that is all done for this entire series, by costume designer Michael Wilkinson. Now, Michael's been in the industry for some years. He started off, as many costume designers do, in the costuming department way back, but he got his first job in 1997 as a full-on costume designer in the film True Love and Chaos. Also worked on American Splendor as the costume designer there. Garden State, that Zach Braff film, I don't know whether you remember that one, from 2004. He was the costume designer there. Dark Water, Babel, or Babel, however you want to pronounce that, the film with Brad Pitt from 2006. He was costume designer on 300 as well, which, as well as Watchmen, Terminator Salvation, Tron Legacy, Sucker Punch, The Twilight Saga, also Man of Steel, Batman v Superman, Dawn of Justice. He also worked on Joy, the film from 2015, and has since worked on The Gentleman with Guy Ritchie on that film, and indeed has brought us up to date with working on Andor. So lots of experience in the industry, and lots of great costumes along the way. So this week, Michael Wilkinson, we do indeed salute you.
Fair dues. No, that's a heck of a resume there from him.
And that was just a, I missed out loads of films there. I just mentioned some of the ones that well, selfishly, that I'm a fan of. But
no, it's actually the fact that you mentioned a couple in there where there's a bit more of the grungy, and the fairly normal to the extraordinary and polished, and we're getting to see that in Andor as well. One of the scenes that I had to repeat, because it was the costumes, and that was in One Way Out, where the Chandrilin trio at Mon Mothma's apartment in Coruscant, just beautiful, shiny costumes. I would feel self-conscious wearing them, because they were just so resplendent. They were so, so rich and colourful too, but pristine, and I think fitted the characters. And one thing with costume design, as we all know, is, does it fit the character, and does it actually, when just taking one look at a character in costume, can you get under the skin, as it were, peel a layer away and see that character? And an answer to this is yes, we do. We get to see everything from the rebels who are living in caves to those wealthy people who live in apartments in Coruscant, to even the Imperial uniforms too. They're all actually spot on. So good shout out this week, Keith.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, as I said, there are some costumes which were established, decades ago, like Imperial officers and stormtroopers and all of this sort of thing. But we're seeing sort of variants and new versions and stuff, as well as, like you said, both the affluent and the poor citizens of different worlds here. And it's the full gamut, isn't it? And it's
it is. We're getting the full spectrum, the full gamut. You're right. Yeah. So fair dues, and an absolute salute and applause there for that as well. And again, yeah, you're right. It blends, doesn't it? Really adds and blends to this entire series.
Yeah, no, for sure. For sure. Okay, time for a bit of refreshment. It's time for some Bantha Milk Blue.
I am partaking again this week, Keith.
There you go. Well, you are, but I have to say, just I haven't put this here to brag. I've put this here to prove. So I too experienced blue milk last week because I was fortunate enough to be able to visit when I was down in Florida. My good friend Dan, who's been on this show before, Dan Tomeo, got me a Disney pass so that I could go to Galaxy's Edge, which obviously I went to the one in Hollywood back in 2019, but at the time the ride called Rise of the Resistance wasn't open, so I was fortunate enough, and I do feel very blessed and privileged to have done that, to have gone and experienced that. But of course, in honor of you, Graham, I had to experience some blue milk, and so I bought some, and there I am drinking it in front of the Millennium Falcon. I don't know who all those other people around me were. I mean, for heaven's sake, all those other people in the background, how dare they? but I think you can see from the picture on the left what my overall reaction to the blue milk was. So yeah,
It's an acquired taste. Let's be honest.
it is, and it's funny because out there, it's a very icy, sugary drink. Actually, it's not milky at all. They sell both blue milk and green milk, but it's 10 credits a cup. I thought that I'd just stick to the one. I mean, I did try it back when I went, as I said, a few years back, but I think I had the blue then as well. But
so you've taken the lesson learned from Mon Mothma then, not to try and transfer some of your family's fortune over to your bank account or to skim off some charity then to be able to pay for this blue milk.
I'll tell you what, this entire trip was on credit. Let's just put it that way. I really shouldn't have done it, but there you go.
400,000 even. Brilliant.
But did you, as we well know, and we've said before, really, when you're dealing with anything that's set in the Star Wars universe, the whole thing is an Easter egg, really, and a reference. And we've talked about the difference between references being fan service, member berries, just there for the sake of it, as opposed to something that actually is more than fan service and sort of makes logical sense and builds on mythology and builds on design and all of this sort of thing. Obviously, I always say this every week, but it's true. There are channels out there that do this in way more detail than we probably go into on this show. But I don't know. Was there anything that stuck out for you in particular?
We'll obviously get to the Star Wars scene, the very short, punchy, exciting one there, which had obvious references, but the Saw Gerrera scene there was a weapon that Luthen had in, and this was the episode, so this was the Daughter of Ferrix episode, that looked like a lightsaber. It would look wooden. Now, I haven't looked into it. I don't usually go searching for these things. I usually make my supposition it's wrong and I get corrected and then I learn. Not being too detailed, but that one, I was just wondering if you had researched, Keith, to see what type of weapon that is.
I have not. No, I've kind of, with this show, I very much kind of, I mean, I've only watched the episodes once, so far. I do plan on doing a sort of complete rewatch again when we reach the finale. But I've been sort of watching it as it goes and not really getting too involved in all of that sort of thing. I do know that Lucian had, like, in one of the early episodes, he had something that at one point looked a bit like a lightsaber handle, but then turned into like a sort of hiking pole. I don't know whether you remember that. It was quite early on in the show. I think in the first 2 or 3 episodes. And yes, you're right. He was. We actually see another thing where this is handed to him when he's going in to see Saul, don't we? And but yeah, I don't know. I mean, I know I've heard, and I try and avoid it, but I've heard that there is speculation out there as to whether he's actually a Jedi Knight and whether this is going to, connect us to the wider Star Wars, because obviously something we've said about this show is they have dropped those sort of fantasy elements a bit more in this show. We haven't had the Force and the Jedi and all of that sort of thing. It's been more sort of spy and politically based and all of that sort of stuff. But yeah, I don't know. I'm just kind of going with it. But we'll see. I have to admit, I did think, and this we'll dig into when we talk about the show itself. But I was worried at one point that was the end of Lucian in this. And again, this is the other good thing with these characters that we don't know, means that there are definite stakes and therefore definite tension there, because we don't know what their fate and their outcome is. So yeah. I don't have any personally. I don't have any real speculation on that, just because I'm happy to just go with it. I'm sort of trusting the writing team on this one. They've delivered so far, and they've surprised me. It's been unexpected. It hasn't been obvious, in my opinion, by any means, and I'm just kind of enjoying the journey, really. So
yeah. And the one that I alluded to earlier, but it's not, for me, it's not an Easter egg, because we get a Star Wars fight in space. We get the prelim of a war amongst the stars with Luthen's escape, but everything there was, including the cannon fodder TIE fighters, was within our classic Star Wars. So I wouldn't say that or argue that was Easter egg. However, I didn't read this. I was told this about the cruiser that does stop him, and it's the Cantwell. That's the one.
Right. Yeah,
and where that name had come from. Again, not being into the details or uber Star Wars geek, I'd heard that it's actually named after its designer, so its real life designer, and how that was it was meant for the, if not just Star Wars A New Hope, but for the original trilogy, but was not used, but then was dug up by designers for Rogue One, and for that then to have been used here, that's the Easter egg that I picked up. But I was told that. I didn't go researching off on that one, and that's cool, because it for me, it's a crew. It's another Imperial ship, which is Imperial. It's an Imperial Grey after all, right?
Yes,
ships are all, and I'm being a Lego builder too, as part of my geekness. I have one of the largest boxes of Lego that I have collected. It is the Star Wars Imperial Grey after all. So to see another ship like that, and with its different design, and with the tractor beam working as it is here, just filled me with so much childlike excitement, really taking me back, even though it's a new ship, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you are absolutely right. The ship was designed by Colin Cantwell, hence why they've called it a Cantwell class cruiser. And he worked with, Ralph McQuarrie right back, in the early days of Star Wars for the original trilogy, the original movie, in fact. And yeah, this was an early design for a Star Destroyer before we went with the sort of classic triangular shit that we see in the films. And apparently this was actually going to be used in Solo, a Star Wars story at one point, and I believe is in a deleted scene, but didn't actually make the film itself. So that's kind of quite
it's
cool.
Solo, not Rogue One.
Yeah, that's quite cool that they've gone back to to a design that they've used and come back to it. And indeed, what a great scene. I mean, we'll come on to that. The only other thing I didn't know whether was a visual cue or a visual Easter egg, but when we got the overhead shot of the prison facility there, it did sort of make me think, oh, it almost looks like the Imperial logo.
Yes.
Which I'm sure is by design, but
let's go with that. Let's run with it. I'm happy with that, Keith.
Yeah, but I'll be honest, I didn't really spot anything overtly. There was one thing, in fact, it's only just dawned on me when I was going through the list of Michael Wilkinson's costume credits, and we got to Garden State, and I mentioned Zach Braff. It did make that there was one thing which when I watched the show, I thought, so when Cassian goes back to the hotel where he had the stash, obviously, there's somebody else sleeping in there. When we last saw him, he was with an attractive young lady, but this time there was an alien character sleeping, and I wondered whether it was the same species as the I forget the name of the character, but there was an alien that Zach Braff voiced in Obi-Wan Kenobi last season that was driving the transport that he and Leia take with the stormtroopers. And I don't know, because you didn't see it very well, because it was obviously under bed sheets and led down, but you saw sort of like tentacles right around the mouth, and I just wondered whether that was the same species, and if so, a cool Easter egg, because it's recognizable species as well as new ones, which we get in these episodes as well, right? So
for now, yes.
Yeah.
No, not sure if an Easter egg. I did mention in my summary, it was the shoreline sunset with Andor literally processing and starting to grieve Marva after the shock revelation to him, and a downer ending on episode 11. But I just thought on rewatching how so being there is that a motif of Cassian's now? Was that deliberate? So very close to an Easter egg there.
Yeah, no, it was definitely a visual cue, wasn't it? That was very reminiscent and quite heartbreaking, because obviously we know what that means later. But yeah, no worries. Well, if we're done with Easter eggs, I guess we can talk about speculation. You done with Easter eggs? Okay. Never tell me the odds. Or I've got a bad feeling about this. I'll be honest. It's part not having much time to sort of prepare for this show this week, having to obviously catch up with 2 episodes and go back to work, and woe is me, and all this stuff. So I haven't had a massive amount of headspace to think too deeply about any speculation, and also I kind of just want to enjoy the conclusion of this series. So I haven't really got anything as such. But have you got anything specific?
Well, listen, track record through this half of the series, which is mostly from the writing and its unpredictability, is that we've got so much bloody wrong, haven't we, Keith? Like, includes the ever, the fortune teller that is Pete Mealy, bless him. We've guessed at certain things only to have the next episode change completely. But
but
Well, joking
sometimes,
aside with Andor,
sometimes we get things right as well, and we're
yeah,
bang on the money with some stuff. So, whatever.
yeah, no, it's been wonderful to be proved wrong because of the direction and the in character. So within the nature of a character, that an action or a decision is made by them that that we have gone wrong. We knew there would be a heist, and we knew there would be an escape, or at least an escape attempt. We just got incorrect as to which episodes that there would be. We know there's going to be a showdown on Ferrix now, but anyone can say that now because we've got one episode left. This last episode set it all up, and we've had that practically for the last 8 or 9 episodes prior to that. So that's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
He says, and then next week we'll be talking about this, and it'll be different. But
yeah, well, I mean, one of the things, one of the pluses for me, if you like, I think with this is the lack of predictability. I'm loving that, in the fact that there are certain shows, particularly some of the earlier Star Wars ones, which are designed to fit in between certain things. I know this is as well, but fit in with really, really well established characters and all this sort of thing, and they do fall into that sort of pit of predictability and just a bit like whatever, and all this. Whereas with this, one of the things I am enjoying the most about it is not knowing. Yes, we know where. Well, I was going to say 3, but it's actually 4, which we'll come on to. But we know where 4 of the characters are going to be in 5 years' time, right? But other than that, we don't, and it's like I like that. I like not knowing what they're going to do, and them being unpredictable and morally ambiguous and all of this sort of thing. And we don't really, because let's be honest, Lucian, we don't really know whether he's a good guy. Well, he's not a good guy or a bad guy. He's sort of an anti-hero, isn't he? He's somewhere. He's somewhere in that middle area where Saw sits, and I'm just liking the sort of blatant unpredictability of it. Well, at least I think it's unpredictable. There may be people out there who disagree completely, but
no, it has been, and it's testament that where I had read up on other people's opinions and their take on the Easter eggs, and also their predictions in previous episodes, where there was where there was a mole in the ISB, and there was lots of chatter on it being Deidre Miro. I couldn't quite see that or agree with that, but I still hadn't predicted that either, and for it to come out as Loney was just completely out of left field, would have been out of left field if it wasn't true to the character and the events that had happened. So that was a brilliant bit of again, I mentioned Cloak and Daggers. Absolutely didn't see that coming at all, and it absolutely fits everything that is working, and the trust element between everyone and Luthen as well. He is the puppet master. He is the true spy master.
for sure.
Yeah, he gives George Miley a run for his money, most definitely, with his. So there is that. Yeah, there is that. So listen, we know that Andor is going to survive. Cassian Andor is going to survive. We know that, right? And we know there's going to be a showdown. Other than that, Keith, I'm just riding the wave. It could end predictably, because these things have been set up for us. So we could say, oh yes, we know partly what's going to happen, but as with a lot of things that have been set up for us, we don't know how it's going to happen.
Yeah,
That's the
that's
major part of this. I went, with my critical mind on some of these episodes, especially the latest episode. Now that I'm into this galaxy, into this universe, it's the how they deal with, as they did with Daughter of House, how they deal with grief, how they deal with um, a an escape from a cruiser, to how a mother has to deal with possibly pimping out her daughter. All very different, diverse challenges, or some that actually wouldn't be challenges normally, but it's how they've been presented and everything that blends together, from writing, acting, directing, editing, the again, you talk about costume there as well, music, and everything that is visual media, all blending together to up the ante and make something a lot more dramatic and meaningful too. So the
yeah,
how it has been so important. And that's why super pumped and excited for episode 12 when it
yeah.
drops next Wednesday.
So you're happy to ride the Niamos wave, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. Well, I follow your friend Charles de Lozerica on Twitter, and he said on one of his posts, one of his tweets, he couldn't resist the Neamos Vice, and also in the typeface of Miami Vice as well. That was brilliant. That there too,
Again,
and again, unpredictable how from that escape to where they are to what had happened there, and what's being shown to us, and how even in this last episode, with all those spinning plates, we literally got, well, we practically then, sorry, got all the characters interacting. Not everyone, but practically all the characters we've been involved in were there. Um, and yeah, again, another setup. We could have a multifaceted episode, even though the vast majority of it could be in one location. Will
yes,
we not go back to Coruscant for most of it? Because again, the stakes are highest in one location, aren't they? On
yeah,
Ferrix, and
yeah,
in one planet now.
yeah,
So will they concentrate all their efforts there? We will see. And
yes,
I have no speculation. I won't be even leading up to Wednesday thinking over, oh, what's going to happen. It'll be just
yeah,
let's keep busy, let the time fly, and yeah, and get into it.
yeah.
That finale.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I love again the Niamus Vice thing. Again, it's kind of like it's mixing another thing from my childhood that I loved into this. So it's just great. It's just great. I see what. Talking of childhood things, it's just a complete aside, but it's just something that really resonated with me yesterday. I was fortunate enough to see the Fablemans, which is
Oh wow.
Steven Spielberg's latest film, which is sort of loosely sort of autobiographical. It's a fictional family, but it's kind of almost like telling the story that he followed. And they have like, this is not a spoiler by the way, but they have like a 6-year-old um uh child version. As I said, it's not Steven Spielberg, but it is. They call him Sam in the film, and he goes to the cinema for the first time when he's 6 with his parents to see The Greatest Show on Earth. Okay, and there's
Mhm.
the scene with the train crash, and he's just mesmerized by this, and and he can't stop thinking about it when he goes home and all this sort of thing. And it just reminds me that was me with Star Wars when I was that age, and it was the first film I ever saw at the cinema. And I remember going to see it with my mum, and obviously I've been watching loads of TV, but this was the first time I saw something that size in Dolby, and the Star Destroyer coming over, and I think I had the same sort of reaction. It just warmed my heart when I watched that scene, because when when cinema's best is when you can relate, right, emotionally. And yeah, that just made me it just made me think, yeah, that's totally what I was that was totally my reaction.
Mine was E.T.
E.T., yeah.
E.T. It was the first movie in a cinema, and emotional wise, yeah, I blubbed like an absolute loon. I was inconsolable at the end, and had been wowed all the way through. And yeah, still it gets me, not so much, but yes,
Me too. Yeah.
emotionally, yeah, that
Yep.
really did.
So there we go. We got the Spielberg reference full circle there.
There you go, all the way back. Yes.
Love it. All right. Well, if there's no more predictions, shall we talk about these two shows? Shall we sort of break them down now from a certain point of view? Yeah.
Let's do it.
All right. So yeah, this is just the bit now where we talk about our thoughts and our nitpicks, and well, good or bad. We just talk about our thoughts on the episode. I've got a few stills there. Again, there's a lot in these episodes, so it's hard to find everything. But I got a few stills there from episode 10, One Way Out. I guess we should start there, really, with this whole prison break that we've been pumped for. Yeah, I mean, I know it's a distant memory now. It's a couple of weeks back, but yeah, were you happy with the mechanics of all of that?
Yeah, and it was done in their style as well, meaning the creatives of Andor's style. It was tense. It was a different type of tension. There was everything together. I was going to say directing, but there was everything going for it than we had with the Eye, which was the last exciting, tense episode as well. But yeah, I think from this, not just the writing, directing, and editing. If you're going to attention, editing is clear here. Was the music? I thought the music was absolutely perfect. It was just the right tempo pace, but also performances, especially Andy Serkis. A big shout to Andy Serkis in this one. I refrained earlier in my summary to say, but I have said so since to many. I think this was a BAFTA, Emmy, Golden Globe awards worthy performance. Andy Serkis was the pain on his face, the conflict, the absolute fish out of water, having to be a leader, doing something that was so important and risky, was all there to see. And then, as I mentioned earlier, the gut punch and the delivery of the line, "I can't swim," was perfection. On reflection about the time, it was just after all that, getting to survive to a point of escaping this prison facility, and he himself can't or won't, or from that fact. That was just amazing. So to answer your question, yes, it was more than I'd been expecting. And again, I rode the wave. I didn't want to predict how it would happen, but it was so nuanced as well, and tragic when our prisoners that we didn't have so much with them. We only had about two and a bit episodes with them, but to see some of them die was still hard to take.
Oh yeah,
and it wasn't overly violent as well. It was more hopeful than chaotic and violent, wasn't it?
Yeah. I mean, it was one of those experiences where prison movies, they're a genre that I like, and I've seen lots of prison escape movies over the years, and TV shows as well, and love all that sort of stuff. And but what was unique here, I had the plan, as it were, had no real sort of idea what was going on until it actually happened. I mean, I was definitely more on the side of the unsuspecting imperial officers than I was the convicts making the prison break, because you know, there was nothing that seemed sort of like obvious. I mean, we'd had some hints in the previous episodes about, you know, the shift change, and the fact that the elevator didn't have the electric plating in the floor, and you know, we knew about the boots and we knew all these things, but how those things sort of tied together to the resolution and the plan here of how they were going to escape, to me at least, did not seem obvious in any way. And yeah, I kind of, you know, when Andor started you know, messing with the breaking the water pipe thing and sort of flooding that section, and I'm like, what's he doing? Because I'm thinking, you know, water and electricity don't mix well, you know, and all this sort of thing. And yeah, I thought it was really well thought out and paced, and it was weird because in some respects it wasn't the action fest that one might have expected, actually, but nonetheless it was very satisfying. And you're absolutely right, they made it about the characters. So the people that we lost, even though we didn't know them that well, you know, you felt for that. And most definitely, I mean, this, I would say this episode, for the most part, for the A storyline anyway, the break storyline, was almost more focused on Kino, Andy Serkis's character, than it was Cassian in many respects, wasn't it? We kind of experienced that episode from his point of view, I felt. And yeah, I totally salute and support and agree with your awards nomination, you know, reference, and yeah, I well deserved. And it's so nice to see Andy Serkis doing so well, because he's a lovely chap. I've been lucky enough to see him in a few interviews over the years, you know, Q&As and that sort of thing, and he's really passionate about the craft. And obviously he does a lot of work where you don't really see it's him, even though he brings so much to it. And it's just nice to have a role. I know he's done roles before where we see it's him, but he was really given some stuff to do in this one. And it's a horrible thought to think we might not see him again, but then again, we might. We don't know, right?
We don't know. That's the big thing here. Just because we focus on Melshi and Cassian's escape, it is mentioned in the next episode of, you know, with the question of how many did escape, because there's a chance more would have. So there's an absolute certainty that somebody here, for me, I know I'm stretching a bit possibly, but that we will see somebody in some guise, whether it's an Andor or another series as well. But it would be a shame not to otherwise. Yeah. So no, yeah, the prison break itself.
Yeah, they left it ambiguous, didn't they? I mean,
Enough. Yeah.
You know, we assume, sadly, he didn't make it, because, you know, what a heartbreaking moment when he says he can't swim and whatever. But as I said, they didn't show anything, so you know, there's every chance we might. Also, on the note that you mentioned there, I said earlier in this episode about how, you know, we know for sure the fates of 4 characters, and what I was kind of alluding there to was obviously Cassian, Mon Mothma, Saw. But also, and I'll be honest, I'm embarrassed to say, it wasn't until episode 10 that I actually twigged about this, even though he'd been in a few episodes prior. But again, they didn't flag wave it too much. They were quite subtle. But was the fact that Melchi, played by Duncan Pow, was actually from Rogue One as well, and I didn't necessarily connect that immediately, because, as I said, they didn't they haven't force fed us stuff. They haven't done, you know, any sort of glaring, you know, flag waving about about the foreshadowing. But yeah, I was like, oh, of course, Melchi, yes, he's in Rogue One. Yes, of course, this makes total sense. And you know, he'd been in what, several episodes by this point. So.
Indeed.
But,
The prison break itself. You know, my expectation was going to be the episode, right?
yes.
But as I mentioned earlier, for 46 minutes they packed even more in again. You kind of look, you know, you repeat viewing and you're looking at the clock, and they've managed to fit in all of this so tightly, and then have progress with other characters, other storylines, even introducing a new character, fully formed new character into it as well. Extraordinary episode, this one, to have done that and not be a kind of carbon copy of the Eye, which is the last exciting, tense finish of a 3-story arc.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, moving on. You know, there we see, you know, at Mon Mothma's apartment, and yeah, the mentioned meeting, and yeah, just a different take, a different pace, and as I mentioned, Mothma finally getting some high stakes, and something that affects her, because she's been kind of skirting around being quite privileged, and now we get somebody who's actually more powerful and less caring as well, coming into the series, with I'll fetch his name back up again because he is new, Davo Skulden, a wealthy man there, and that's a setup. It's an end of a 3-story arc, but we've got a setup for more, and brilliantly well done there. And again, the costumes were something that were a bit of a distraction afterwards on second viewing. But no, you've got, you know, these class actors, many of them theatre actors as well. You know, Ben Miles just being quiet there, but doing enough to try and within the characters anyway, Tay to, you know, facilitate this. But you know, we're not into espionage. We're into more the politics here and the dirty side of politics. So we've gone for something that's tremendously tense, hopeful, risky in a prison break. But then when we get to the higher echelons, we've now got something completely different, but no less, no less evil or even dramatic, right? Just there's a different type of drama.
No, absolutely, and a very uncomfortable scene there. But I mean, again, I think this episode, you know, in George Lucas's galaxy that he set up, you know, this has done a really good episode, you know, to show a class divide, basically, you know, and we've got, you know, the prison convicts, you know, who had this sort of very much working class feel to them, you know, in this THX 1138 type aesthetic. But yeah, likewise, we get the you know, the affluence of Mon Mothma and her situation, and it makes me think a little bit like it was almost what they were trying to do. Rian Johnson was trying to sort of do it in The Last Jedi when you had that section on Cantabite, you know, where it was all the sort of affluent part of the galaxy, and you know, the
war trade,
and all that sort of thing, and you know, I know that that's been quite divisive for fans, the way it was handled and stuff. But again, because we've got, you know, 12 episodes here and time to breathe and time to develop and all of this sort of thing, I think you know, it's done a really good job of not only showing the sort of difference between the ideology of the Empire and the repression and the control and all of this sort of thing, and the if you like, the rebels, or the formation of the rebels and people resisting, freedom fighters, fighting for their freedom with this sort of thing. But likewise, we've got this really interesting look at how the other half live, how another culture live, and yeah, uncomfortable. I sort of found the way he was kind of trying to set up that deal with the 13-year-old daughter meeting his 14-year-old son and whatever. That was, I really felt for Mon Mothma there, because that was very uncomfortable, wasn't it?
No, it was good writing as well. Again, back in character, but also to the culture too. We had a lot of cultures coming out in this version of Star Wars too, where Chandrilan custom has it that is usually okay, but it's been rejected by Mon Mothma, even though her and her husband were married at a younger age. That is there, and it feels as if she had escaped to Coruscant, but her past in whatever she's done is catching up with her. So these must be driving forces for her rebellion too. She's obviously in a loveless marriage. Her daughter and her don't get on very well, but she's tried to be a different person, but actually everything's catching up with her.
Yeah.
And now she's struggling. And I said finally, because we haven't really had it. It's been her story. It's been more cloak and daggers, and there has been a spectre of the money transfers, which could be construed as theft. And it's now finally catching up with her. And yeah, even though it's uncomfortable, it fits, doesn't it? It's not as if it's left field or let's throw something in to push Mon Mothma into a position where we'll see her later on, ready for the Battle of Yavin. There's real stakes here finally.
And it's interesting as well, because they are, these the themes here are all things that, George Lucas, to his credit, loosely set up in the prequels, but because the prequels weren't really about that, they didn't really have time to sort of go in and explore it. And I just think it's great that Tony Gilroy has sort of and his team have sort of taken this and used it to sort of really flesh this stuff out and give us this sort of peek behind the curtain, because we knew certain things had to happen in order for the Rebel Alliance to form, and of course we saw certain aspects of that in the animated series Rebels, which Dave Filoni did. But it's kind of nice that we're seeing other sides of, because this is kind of happening in the same time frame, and I think that the fact that we're dealing with, I guess, more adult themes, or more of an adult framed drama about this stuff, but set still in that same world is the strength here, very much.
Yeah.
And of course, correct me if I'm wrong, because this is the episode where it's revealed that is it Lonnie from the ISB is actually the informant? That's right, isn't it?
That's right. Yeah, they even managed that. But again, how they did it was extraordinary for me. I genuinely, the way I think now is that, going back to this episode in particular, it's that scene with Lonnie meeting up with Luthen that is my favourite part of this episode, and the one, especially the speech from Luthen as well, is the one that I would return to more than the prison break, if I'm honest.
Right.
There was so much more to it. It was so layered. Again, stakes were high there. And again, I stripped out. There were two award-worthy components to this episode, in my opinion, from the acting side. I think Stellan Skarsgård's performance and the delivery of that, even the writing of that speech. I think that speech will go down in the annals of history now for Star Wars, and a prelim to what we will see, as I mentioned earlier, in Rogue One, Star Wars, and onwards, is the fact that he confesses and admits to us, things we had thought ourselves, where there's going to be no thanks. It's all not going to be acknowledged. The work, the sacrifices that he, as Luthen, as Spy Master, and all those who are being sacrificed and killed effectively and losing their lives, we're not going to get that. These guys, I thought deeply about this, is that these guys aren't going to be up on a podium with everyone all dolled up and dressed up, getting medals hung over their necks by princesses.
Yes.
It won't happen yet. These guys won't get that. The first time we'll have that is with Luke and Han and Chewie getting the medals. These guys won't. These guys are the grafters. These guys are the ones who are doing it. And Luthen was just so ridiculously ruthless, unbelievably ruthless, but also not compassionate, but honestly pouring out his heart. But actually, it was more of a persuasive argument he was making, and just shows how rich and deep this character is. I absolutely adored that speech, that delivery, even the location, very reminiscent of, if you go to the darkness of Empire Strikes Back, right? We've got the winds are blowing. They're somewhere hidden in Coruscant, and you've got these two spies effectively talking, and it was that spycraft that, if you know of John le Carre novels too, that was at play. You had the desperation of Lonnie. Now he has it was said he has a young daughter. Luthen uses that against him, but the fact that he talks of heroism and he needs all the heroes he can get was literally just an amazing leader, putting everything, not just his life, on the line here, and persuading a younger guy who is sacrificing for the greater good. And again, it's the greater good that will just not be seen by anyone.
Yeah.
We see it as an audience. We know where this will go. We know that the Empire will eventually fall, but these guys, nothing will be written about these guys within that galaxy. We're allowed to see what's happening here, and that is a massive, massive strength of this series. And if this one's, even this episode, doesn't get awards, I'd be very shocked. Back to our real world here, away from what we've seen. So I absolutely adored going back to prepare for this episode with you, Keith, to go back to that one scene in full again, more than once. It was excellent.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's definitely Star Wars for grown-ups, this, and the whole spy espionage stuff. Love it. So, and anything else about episode 10 then before we move on to 11?
Right, right at the beginning of that scene when Lonnie's going through the dark underworld of Coruscant, there's an alien, if you noticed, wearing a long puffer coat, not a puffer jacket, a very much an Earth type jacket, and that threw me.
Right, okay.
It's not. It's kind of I don't know. It's not a nitpick. We were talking about costume earlier. There's one of those. Yes. I was like, oh, I've seen people in London wearing them.
Oh right, okay. I'll have to.
How you we look out for Easter eggs and themes and little winks and nudges. I just happened to be seeing that, and I spotted it, and it was on an alien, and then obviously completely forgot about it due to the scene I've just rambled on about there. So there was that, Keith. So go back to it. It's a greenish, long, puffy jacket.
I'll have to check that out for sure.
Yeah, maybe smile.
Again, I can't. I'm just trying to remember the specifics of this episode. But one of the things, if I had to nitpick slightly, I'm thinking the stuff with Cyril has become a bit less interesting. I mean, was he even in this one? I can't remember.
Not this one. It's the next one.
It's the next one.
Had a part to play, and most definitely we had a bit of comedy, no less, in the next episode, which is nice to have a bit of a light relief with the former Sergeant Mosk and his
Oh yeah,
poor
yeah.
quality,
Poor communication. Yeah,
video
yeah. Okay.
call through.
Yeah, yeah. He definitely didn't have 5G where he was, did he? No. All right. Let's move on then to and again, lots to unpack here. I know. By the way, you alluded earlier to the sort of visual reference between the end of this episode and Rogue One, and so I did actually have as you can see there, a picture from that because I thought a very similar thing. But and then of course there's the picture of Andor with Melchi as well, because I put that in to make sure I didn't forget to bring that up because yeah, that's obviously quite key. But yeah, I'll let you start, Graham, if you want to like.
Okay, thank you. No, this one I have read more into, and there's a lot more. There's more criticism, I think, to this one episode out there in the on the internet than there has been for the entire series. I think due to the
Oh wow.
with not specific scenes, but the whole their whole there's holes, and there were nitpicks from people, and also a loss of tension to this one. But I'm a fan still, because I've got used to the 3-story arc now. This being a 2-story arc, where you always have the next episode after the thrilling one, or the one that ends an arc, really being a one where there's consolidation, there's moving of the story ahead. Yeah, one of the gripes, again, not from me at all, but I did mention it to bring it up too, is the off-screen death of a major supporting character in Marva. And to be fair though to the gripes, they were they were complaining that we didn't see more of Fiona Shaw, and I can't disagree with that, because she is, again, another character actor of outstanding talent and experience over the years.
One of the best written lines and beautifully delivered by her was a few episodes ago. I think I mentioned it, where she says something about, that's just love. About and oh, it's heartbreaking. And it would have been nice to have seen more of her. It was fairly inevitable, I think, that she was going to not make it much further. And I guess the fact that Andor not actually getting to see her before she died kind of adds to that heartbreak. So I can see the criticism, but then again, I'm not necessarily sure I'm not necessarily sure I agree with it. I can understand it, if that makes sense.
There could have been a writing in where, if we had looked at predictions, that her life would end in defense of her home, or her attacking the Empire, the Imperial Guards at the hotel, or who would obviously come to Ferrix. So she would have been more of a active rebel, and not to just die there.
But life. Whereas I think we've talked about this show being more realistic, in inverted commas, realistic in the Star Wars world. But I mean, life's like that, isn't it? Not everybody, not everybody can have
go
that
out in a blaze of glory.
Exactly. Not every, and maybe the fact that she is obviously somebody who raised and influenced Cassian, and made him the person he is today. But that's her contribution, if you like. And I mean, I think we as the audience do have the heartbreak that that's it. She's written, and that's all we see of her. And as I said, I think intentionality wise, it might be, you know, because we're invested, it's put us in. It really has put us in Andor's shoes here, hasn't it? Because he didn't get to see her either, and we as the audience are the same. We haven't got to see that, and it is kind of frustrating. So I can definitely understand why people would criticize that, but then I do wonder whether that's partially by design.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, no, again, it was a criticism that I'd read about and I wanted to bring up because it was a shame not to see more of Fiona Shaw, but I get it. So it's not criticism direct through me from me, I should say, even though it's come through me. Another one that for me, I was wondering the first viewing of why they had what was beautifully done, again heartbreaking, was B as a character and seeing him again and having a I'll put relative in inverted commas because he is a droid after all, but having a non-human character grieving and refusing to leave. Now, beautifully done, written, and when if you've lost anyone dear to you in your life, and the confusion and the grief that follows after, this is what was being portrayed here. And I wondered where does this serve the story? But then I realised this is how what we've had is just another layering of the emotion. It's not the what, it's the how they're doing it. It hasn't really driven the story so much as to just have that layer of, well, if a major character dies, then you have to deal with it. But effectively, this one episode was really driving towards. It was right in the middle there with Marva's death, and all the spokes from that wheel all led from that. So why wouldn't you have the grief of her passing, and to have ignored B and what then we may very well get in the next episode? I think that it'll tie up nicely there anyway. But having an extra layer of emotion dealing with the grief, and then everybody seeing that Cassian Andor would return to the planet is there. But my initial thought in seeing this was, why have we got those scenes with Brasso and the daughters of Ferrix looking after B, the doddering old uncle, grieving and being stuck and being lost now without his sister or his master in this guise. So very well done, very different to have a droid having human reactions to death.
Yeah.
But afterwards I went, yeah, okay, yeah, I can see that it has added more to Andor, even though it doesn't really drive the story ahead, right?
Yes. Yeah. And one of the things, again, I kind of alluded to it a bit when we were talking about the previous episode, but I echo it with this, is to quote another franchise completely. I like it when we see strange new worlds and new civilizations. Yeah. And one of the things that, again, I really liked here is we're seeing the different customs and culture, as well as the sort of social political side of these different worlds. So it's not just about seeing alien looking creatures and different environments, but it's right down to the thing. I love the custom that they have about when you die, your ashes are actually formed and mixed with mortar to make bricks, which are then used in the construction of the buildings and stuff. And I thought that was quite a fascinating sort of cultural thing that they've done here for this new world that we haven't seen before. And I kind of found that, I don't know about you, I like it when we're sort of fleshing out those sort of details as well about the
Oh yeah.
as I
being
said,
a
the
Trek fan
customs.
for years too. Yeah, I share that, and having it here, it wasn't a distraction. That particular that particular cultural education and that information. I'm just wondering what the payoff will be in the next episode
Yeah,
in Ferrix with it, yeah, because we do have characters here that we've returned to that have been given time to be fleshed out, and maybe it is as we've had previous. We've got to understand more and care more for these characters, and now the stakes are higher. You know, whether they are injured or affected some way or even killed, that will hit us emotionally as well as anything else that comes out of the action, because we will, we guess, have action now in the fight in the finale. There will be there will be a Mexican standoff as it's been set up to be, right? But it'll
yes,
be one that where we genuinely care
very good.
for the
Yes.
characters, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I've only watched this the once, so I need to go back and revisit because I might have missed something here. But I did have one sort of nitpick with this episode quite early on, and it was concerning how Cassian and Melshi get off world. Okay, and my thing was we see the, I guess they're Nicarians. We see some more alien characters anyway when they're trying to escape the planet. I'm not sure if these are characters species we've seen before, but I'm assuming they're kind of indigenous form of life from that planet. But we get one of these. Oh my God, how are they going to get out of this? Because they get caught in those net type, those sort of organic net traps. Yeah,
Yes,
but
indeed.
unless I missed something, I was kind of a little bit how they got out of that and therefore got off world seemed a bit. It's the one time in this show that it's felt like a bit of a plot convenience to me, and I don't know whether as I said in the conversation, I didn't watch it with subtitles or anything. I just watched it as it played, but obviously they had a sort of dialect to those characters, and I don't know whether I missed something. But was it me, or was that a little bit kind of
No,
you know
I did. Yeah, in my
disturbing?
summary, I did say thankfully that their empire hating. It was a case of okay. Sometimes it's more fun, or you have a bit more danger if the path to escape or to reaching a goal it isn't so easy. If it's easy, then it's not so exciting or tense. So this seemed to be one of those where we've got a lot of tension with him climbing and escaping and not being found by the Empire, and then to be caught again, and then to be able to hop off. Yeah, it. I understand why they did it, but they escaped quite easily from that. Then, didn't they? Yeah,
I
I
thought so.
guess that there had to be a ship to take them somehow. So it did seem, yeah, it's not just you. I don't think there was some convenience to having them hop off and be able to get to the exact planet that Cassian needed to, right? So there
Yeah,
was that, but
as
yeah,
I said, I wasn't sure if I'd missed something, just in that watch. But
no,
as I
but
said,
it was
slightly nitpicky. But I was like, don't know about that.
yeah, and not knowing again, not being uber geeking into the details of the aliens to know whether they are new or we've had reference to them previously. It was funny to me, being a Welsh person, that the name of one of them was Dewi something or other, and Dewi being a diminutive of David, which is David, which is Saint David as well, the patron saint of Wales. To have a Dewi character made me laugh. It was brilliant that you've got this character. So as I'm taking trying to take Welsh global, these guys are taking Welsh galaxies or galactic, aren't they? Yeah. So we
Yeah.
we had that, but no, Keith. No, point taken. Yeah, it did seem a bit too convenient that there is this trap, but actually they managed to say, "Oh, we hate the Empire. Can we get a lift to this other planet, please?" And it's a yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, I mean, again, I'm nitpicking, but it's the one time in this show. I've certainly had it in other Star Wars shows, but it's the one time in this one where I've felt like that. I've been like, well, that was a little bit. What is it? Super easy, barely an inconvenience.
Indeed, but again, there was some comedy there for us as well to lighten the load. So that at least um, they had comic moments to make it more of an entertainment rather than just the tense scenes that we've got used to. You know that they've raised the bar of quality here and standards here with Andor. So I suppose we can in time forgive them for scenes like this, right?
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But, yeah, no, that's cool. And then of course we got some good stuff with Mon and Dev in this as well, haven't we? We've got
Oh,
some.
yeah. Well, again, yes, yeah. So, yeah, a different turn of events as well, but one where it may become convenient for Mon to where she really does. She you can tell she's in pain, and it goes against her ways, her beliefs now, and her rebellion away from Chandrilan customs that her daughter has actually now all of a sudden taken up Chandrilan customs, and maybe the introduction and maybe an early marriage, it won't be so hard on Mon then, or at least her daughter. So I'm hoping they haven't taken this there. I'm hoping um, they haven't made it easier on Mon to get away from Davos's plan for his son and her and the money. I'm hoping that this isn't why they're doing it. I'm hoping it's just another cultural bit of information and an expansion on the
Yes.
galaxy. I'm not sure if you think the same.
No, by the way, I just want to correct myself. I meant Vel. I said Dev. I meant Vel. All these names, I keep getting them wrong. But yes, I'm Mon and Vel. Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
But no, it's I'm hoping again, it's because we're on the subject of convenience that this isn't a convenient way to get Mon or at least her daughter off the hook a little bit by having her daughter want to um, go against her mother first. There's a bit of tension there, but actually it's less tense in the plot to have the daughter be more Chandrilan friendly. If she wasn't, then there would be that horrible tension and impact of her mother basically pimping her off. If she's prepared to accept Chandrilan custom and be married off, pimped off, as I keep on saying, then there's less tension then in future, right?
For sure. Yeah. No, absolutely.
I'm hoping they're not
Absolutely.
going there.
Yeah. Yeah. Hopefully not. But
Yeah.
I don't
Do
even.
you,
Some of these story threads as well. Because we've got a second season coming, and obviously there's still 4 years till we get to the events of Rogue One and New Hope. um you know I don't think everything's necessarily going to get answered in this last episode, is it?
hmm.
I know I'm sort of going back to speculation now, but I'm just wondering. We've got quite a few plates spinning, as you said earlier here, and I just wonder, how many of them are actually going to come crashing down in the finale, and how many of them will be left spinning until next season.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm not going to speculate, but I think it's impossible or too much to do to put themselves under pressure, at least to try and tie up all loose ends. I think that's we a cliffhanger would work, but we haven't had many cliffhangers in this type of creativity and its writing and the delivery of what we've seen from this series and the plot and stories so far. So we may not get that, but yeah, there's going to be storylines that will naturally be more lengthy and will be best served by being told over a number of more episodes and years as well, rather than it just being all closed off. You have a death of a character, but then we've still got Andor going over to the rebels fully. That's a topic, or there's another big topic conversation there. But there's the forming of the Rebel Alliance. That can't happen in one episode. And what happens with Ferrix and other characters? It's the survival and nurturing of current characters beyond the next episode. I think we definitely will see, Keith.
Yeah. And as a bit of a shout out to the the wonderful visual effects that we have in this show as well. My favorite scene, from a tension and from a fanboy action point of view, is definitely the scene with the Imperial cruiser and Luthen's ship, where that all was, again, very clever because it was familiar but different. Yeah. And
absolutely.
And I really, because I did wonder, because we don't know Luthen's fate. I, for a minute there, wondered whether that was it for a moment. And
same here.
So the tension really worked in that. But again, day player actors, lucky enough, to be cast here in the UK and be in these things. But the guy, I don't know his name off the top of my head, but the guy who played the Imperial officer there on the cruiser, great job. Again, it's only a small part, but it just felt true to the world again, didn't it? And I love the fact that we saw a different looking ship, which, as I said, was still familiar, still had design elements, and I think it's great that they went back to the original designs to do that rather than starting something from scratch. I like that. And
yes.
and Luthen's way out of it, genius, right?
Yeah, I said the Batmobile in space.
Yes.
Just utterly brilliant. There was calm there first, but it made sense and it was fitting to Star Wars as well, even to the design and the Millennium Falcon-esque levers to hop into hyperspace and just to end a scene on something classic, absolute classic that we got right back in 1977. We got the hyperspace, but we got the TIE fighters coming out, which heightened it, and then just all these wonderful toys being used to attack and to go to war against the Empire. Yeah, Keith, this one scene in total with the build up, the tense build up to the actual action sequence was only around 5 minutes. The tense scene was just over a minute, and that was it. But it's one of the most memorable, exciting scenes that we've got in Star Wars. I was really geeking out over that and selling that one scene for Andor to friends over this weekend as well. It was just something spectacular, and really, really happy to have seen that. I think that one was utterly flawless and wonderful to have done it. I did have somebody say that in Andor as a whole, the the Star Wars scenes have been earned. They've really earned them, and when they've delivered them, it has been a geek fest. But they haven't. You've mentioned it a few times. You mentioned it earlier too about fan service. This was beyond that, I think, because it got to a point where we've just had a scene with Saw talking about war, and all of a sudden we get a battle. We don't have Luthen, who I was with you. Or is this the end of Luthen? Actually, no, it's Luthen onto another level. Wasn't expecting him to escape at all. I thought that's it. He's going to be captured here, but he didn't. He didn't want to, and he, of all people, was the only person who knew what that ship could do. So if you drew or even put him in a Batman mask, that would have been fitting as well, right? Cross universe fitting. It was absolutely just brilliant. Loved it.
Yeah. No, I did too. I was very satisfied with that bit.
Yeah. One to go back to over and over again.
Yeah, no, for sure. Okay. Was there anything else in that episode that you want to drill into at all? I feel like we've covered a fair bit here in the last 90 minutes, but yeah.
No, there was No, well, I think we should end on a high. I think we should end on the jump to hyperspace.
Yes. No, absolutely. Well, I mean, I think we're both looking forward to next week. I am pleased to say that I'm hoping Pete can join us as well. But I am pleased to say that we are going to have, you mentioned earlier, actually, we've got a special guest next week. Charles de Lauzarica is going to join us from the US to talk about this and I guess, talk about some of the more of the work that he's doing as well, which will be great. And it'll be excellent to hear his point of view on that. So, please do tune in and check that out. If you've got any comments you want to make, you can put them down below, but you can also get in touch. You can use the com link and get in touch with us here. We've got an email address, which is lswotcast@gmail.com. Essentially, let's see what's out there, cast@gmail.com. LSWOTcast. You can also find us on the various social medias. Obviously, you're already here on Home Media Minefield, so please do check out some of the other videos and stuff that we have on here. There is Star Wars related content. I've got, because this is called Home Media Minefield, it's primarily about films on various physical media formats, and I've got a detailed talk about the Star Wars original trilogy on DVD, which many people think doesn't exist out there, but it actually does. This is the one without any of the special edition changes. If you want a breakdown of that, check out the link to that video. I also have a really long episode where I talk about the Star Wars radio dramas, which some people don't even know radio dramas exist, but they're something that's very close to my heart for Star Wars. So please check that out as well if you do get time. Also, I want to thank Neil Myers, who does the music for this show. Neil's work can be found at neilmyersmusic.com, so please check that out. And if you want to check out some of my other work that's more creative based, I do have another channel called British Isles. That's EYLES, as in my last name. And there's some short films on there that I've made. I'm looking to try and add more content as and when I get it that I've done over the years that's now becoming available digitally, etc., to put on there. So please do check that out as well. But yeah, that just leaves me to thank you, Graham, for joining me as always.
You're more than welcome. Thank you for having me back.
And good luck with the writing for the rest of this week.
Thank you. Doing really well. Word count is up.
Great.
And ahead of the curve, quite literally. So thank you.
Splendid. And thank you, anyone who's still watching at this point. I applaud you. And please do spread the word. Let anybody know if you think this sort of thing is good. And we will see you next week for another Let's See What's Out There. But bye for now.
Ta-ta.